Assalamu alaikum class. Hope you are well found. Today we are going to talk about carcinogenic agents and how they cause cancer. So today we are also going to discuss how some people develop cancer and others are safe, and why certain exposure to certain chemicals causes cancer in some people and not all, and how these carcinogenic agents initiate mutations in DNA which cause cancer. So let's start our topic. Before starting our topic, I would like to pay tribute to this surgeon who lived in London 200 years ago, Sir Percival Pott. What he did, he saw that young boys from London are increasingly suffering from skin cancer of scrotum. When this surgeon, dig deep into the issues, he got to know that this scrotal skin cancer is associated with increased exposure of soot, which is a phenomena taking place in the chimney sweepers, which were all young boys. So he published his research that soot exposure in chimney sweepers So his attribution caused the local government to make a rule that every chimney sweeper will will take a bath daily after going home. This reduced the incidence of cancer in those people significantly, and this is the single most effective public health measure ever taken that has achieved so much in controlling a lethal disease. Okay, so this was Sir Percival Pott of London 200 years ago. And since then, people have been discovering more and more carcinogenic agents, which are chemicals and present in our surroundings, and we are using them or coming across with them on a daily basis. So, carcinogenic agents are divided into two major categories: direct acting carcinogenic agents and indirect acting carcinogenic agents. आवाज नहीं आ रही? बिल्कुल नहीं। या ऐसा आ रही? नहीं, मैंने नहीं किया। जी जी। Okay, carcinogenic agents are divided into two major categories. One are the direct acting carcinogenic agents, and the other are the indirect acting carcinogenic agents. The direct acting carcinogenic agents, as their name implies, they don't require any metabolic conversion to become carcinogenic. And their major examples include alkylating agents, for example, beta propiolactone, dimethyl sulfate, diepoxybutane, and anti-cancer drugs as well. For example, cyclophosphamide, chlorambucil, nitrosoureas, and others. And acetylating agents, which include imidazole and dimethyl carbamide chloride. If you have gone through the chapter of anti-cancer drugs in your pharmacology syllabus, then you would know by now that all the anti-cancer drugs are themselves also carcinogenic. So you should not be surprised at the presence of these drugs in the category of direct acting carcinogens. Another important thing about these direct acting carcinogens is that they are very weak carcinogenic. They are very weakly carcinogenic. They are not strong carcinogenic agents. They are weak carcinogenic agents, and they mostly include these anti-cancer drugs. Now, the main loophole in the use of these anti-cancer drugs for against cancer is the same, that their long-term use give rise to other cancers. The patient is being treated for one cancer by using these anti-cancer drugs in chemotherapy, but develop another type of cancer as a result. So they are not very favorable type of anti-cancer drugs, the direct acting carcinogenic agents. Second category, which is the more important category, is indirect carcinogens. They obviously require some activation process, just like the proenzymes, to get activated and cause carcinogenesis. And after getting activated, when they have become activated, they are also known as ultimate carcinogens, active carcinogens, or ultimate carcinogens. Their metabolic conversion is mostly carried out by cytochrome P450 dependent monooxygenases, okay, which are obviously present in the mitochondria. Now this is an enzyme, cytochrome P450 dependent monooxygenases. This is an enzyme which is coded by a gene, obviously. Now the genes that code for these cytochromes, they are highly polymorphic. Polymorphic means that the gene will code the same enzyme, but the gene will have different makeup in different individuals. For example, if in me this gene is TCA, then in another individual it will not be TCA, but it will be TUA. इस तरह से होता है, ये polymorphism होता है. It does not affect the product, the nature of the product. The nature of the product will still be cytochrome P450 dependent monooxygenases, but it will be called a polymorphic gene, that it has different forms in different individuals. Now this gene polymorphism is the first reason that you are going to know why certain people develop certain cancers and some other people don't develop a form of cancer. For example, CYP, this is the acronym for cytochrome P450, CYP. CYP1A1 gene polymorphism is responsible for lung cancer in smokers. So if someone is having this gene polymorphism, he is more prone to developing lung cancer if he is exposed to a carcinogenic agent. So smoking does not cause cancer in all patients, but it does increasingly cause cancer. Approximately 10% risk of developing lung cancer is increased in the smokers if they have this gene polymorphism. Now, these are the major examples of the indirect acting carcinogenic agents. The first category is polycyclic and heterocyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are actually formed as a result of fossil burning. And for example, in key examples, benzanthracene, benzopyrene, dibenzanthracene, trimethyl colanthropine, and 7,2-dimethyl benzanthracene. Of these, benzanthracene is the one which was present in soot of the chimneys, which was causing scrotal skin cancer in chimney sweepers. Okay. Now another of these, benzopyrene, it is present when meat is grilled or meat is broiled, and the meat includes beef, mutton, chicken, fish, all kinds of meat. When these type of meats are grilled or broiled, they result in formation of benzopyrene, which is again carcinogenic agent, indirect acting carcinogenic agent. That is why it is said that grilled food is not that much healthy food if it is directly grilled uh, on coal. Okay. Next important thing about these polycyclic and heterocyclic hydrocarbons is that the active compound that is formed as a result of their reaction with DNA is epoxide. So epoxides are the active carcinogens or ultimate carcinogens which form covalent adducts with molecules in the cells, principally DNA, but also with RNA and protein. Because these are the indirect acting carcinogenic agents, they become active and they become epoxides, which is the ultimate carcinogen in this case. The next category is aromatic amines, amides, and azodyes. For example, 2-naphthylamine, beta-naphthylamine, benzidine, 2-acetyl aminofluorine, dimethyl amino azobenzene, or butter yellow. These are widely used in the past in the aniline dye and rubber industries. Beta-naphthylamine is the carcinogenic agent which is responsible for bladder carcinoma. These are important Viva questions and MCQ questions. That is why I am mentioning them. Okay, this is the causative agent of bladder cancer. I will come back to these two categories in a short while. First, I want to tell you about different steps involved in the process of carcinogenesis. So, chemical carcinogenesis is not a one-step process. It is a two-step process, whether the initiating agents be direct acting carcinogens or indirect acting carcinogens. So, the two steps involved are initiation and promotion. So, what is initiation? Initiation results from exposure of cells to a sufficient dose of a carcinogenic agent. An initiated cell is altered, making it potentially capable of giving rise to a tumor. Initiation alone, however, is not sufficient for tumor formation. So here is a carcinogen. And in this example, they are showing an indirect acting carcinogen. After metabolic activation, it is converted into electrophilic intermediates. Electrophilic intermediates means they lack an electron. They are electron deficient. So they will attack DNA, RNA, or proteins which are electron-rich chemicals or structures. So when they will attack DNA, they will form covalent bond with the DNA. This covalent bond is known as a duct. A duct is a small covalent bond. This electrophilic intermediates will bind to DNA and form a duct. If the cell is in healthy state, it will lead to DNA repair and the cell will again become normal. Or otherwise, if this repair machinery fails, the cell will lead on to the pathway of cell death. In case this doesn't happen, what happens? This adduct formation will lead to permanent DNA lesion. A permanent DNA lesion is also known as, which is also heritable or transferable in progeny cells. This is known as mutation. So if someone asks you what is the definition of mutation, you always have to add the word permanent. Without adding the word permanent, it is not mutation. And also it should be transferable to progeny cells. Meaning if the cell will divide, this mutation has to get transferred to the daughter cells as well. So a mutation is a permanent DNA lesion which is transferable in the progeny cells. So the process of initiation leads to or ends in the formation of a permanent DNA lesion. This is also known as initiated cell. All the initiated cells don't progress to form cancer. They have to go through the process of promotion in order to form malignant neoplasm. This initiated cell may remain in the body for years and years or even for whole life. We may be having many initiated cells at this point in our bodies, but that doesn't mean that those initiated cells are going to form malignant neoplasm. It only means that a person who is having an initiated cell is more prone to develop, or he is more close to develop a malignant neoplasm, provided he gets the promotion part of the carcinogenesis. Now, what is promotion? Promotion requires another set of carcinogenic agents. Initiation was undertaken by, or initiation was started by the carcinogenic agents, which are divided into two categories: direct and indirect carcinogenic agents, which we have already discussed. And promotion is carried out by another set of carcinogenic agents. The examples of carcinogenic agents that act as promoters include unopposed estrogenic stimulation of the endometrium and breast, and chronic inflammatory processes associated with tissue repair, for example, inflammatory bowel disease, chronic hepatitis, and Barrett esophagus. So, these are two common examples of the promoters. Promoters don't inflict any DNA lesions, but they are involved in cell proliferation and altered differentiation. Their main function is that they cause the cells to proliferate, and they also alter the cell phenotype, which gives rise to pre-neoplastic clone. And then further proliferation and additional mutations. So this proliferation smooths the ground for the neoplasm to attain additional mutations. Ultimately, all this process will lead to the formation of a malignant neoplasm. So these are the steps involved in chemical carcinogenesis. If we summarize them, it is a process of two major steps: initiation and promotion. Initiation is undertaken by two types of carcinogenic agents, direct and indirect. Those carcinogenic agents and mostly it is undertaken by indirect carcinogenic agents. Direct carcinogenic agents are not much carcinogenic in nature. So indirect carcinogenic agents, after becoming metabolically active, they form electrophilic intermediates. These electrophilic intermediates may get detoxified from kidneys and get excreted, ending the process right in the start. So if they are not detoxified and they remain in the body, these electrophilic intermediates will bind to DNA, which are electron-rich uh, compounds. Then binding to DNA will lead to formation of adducts, which are small covalent bonds. Now still this adducts, DNA adducts, they can get repaired, or the cell can go into the pathway of cell death. If that doesn't happen, permanent DNA lesion or mutation is formed in the genetic material. Now, at this stage, this cell is known as an initiated cell. What happens next with the introduction or the induction of promotion, which is done by promoters, which are another set of carcinogens? Examples include unopposed estrogen stimulation of breast and ovaries, and chronic inflammatory conditions. These serve as promoters. These promoters are mostly involved in cell proliferation and altered differentiation, which leads to formation of pre-neoplastic clone, which sets the ground for this neoplasm to form additional mutations, after which and further proliferation leads to the formation of a malignant neoplasm. Now, this whole process can take years and years of time. There is no timeline given when as to describe that after how much time of introduction of a carcinogenic agent the malignant neoplasm will form. We don't have a time frame to that. That can take the whole life of a person. For example, it can take even 70 years. Or if it is done rapidly, then it may lead to this stage within a year or so. So nobody actually knows that how much time is taken for all this process to get completed. It depends on person to person, his luck, and obviously God's will. So initiators are important to start the process of carcinogenesis. No cancer can form without the presence of initiators. And what about promoters? Promoters themselves cannot lead to formation of cancer. But if they can only convert a cell into malignant cell if the initiators have already initiated the cell or formed a permanent DNA damage. This experiment was undertaken by a researcher to explore the actions of initiators and promoters on animal cells. Group 1 was given an initiator, but later on no promoter was given. Similarly, group 2 was given an initiator, and within a short period of time, this group 2 was also exposed to promoter. Group 3 was given the initiator, and after a gap of time, they were also exposed to promoters. Group 4 was exposed to promoters first and then initiators. And group 5 was exposed to only promoters and no initiators. Promoter used for this purpose was croton oil, which leads to inflammation. And initiator used was polycyclic hydrocarbon, which we have already studied. It is an indirect carcinogenic agent. So what happened after the certain period of time? Group 1 developed no tumors because there were no initiators, because there were no promoters. Then group 2 developed tumors because they were first initiators and then promoters. Group 3 also developed tumors because there were initiators and then promoters. After a certain period of time, it also developed tumors. Group 4 developed no tumors because the order of introduction of the carcinogenic agent was incorrect. And then group 5 also didn't develop any tumors because in this case, no initiating carcinogenic agent was introduced in the experiment. Okay, another thing that I want to mention here is that these mutations are actually non-lethal non-lethal genetic damage. You also have to mention this word that the mutations are non-lethal in nature, because if they are lethal, they are going to cause death of the cell. So it's very important to mention that mutations are non-lethal permanent DNA lesions that are transferable into the progeny cells. Okay, group 4. Group 4 was exposed to promoters first and then initiators, which is the wrong sequence of events. Only if initiators are introduced first to the cells, followed by the introduction of promoters, then malignant neoplasm will form. So in group 4, promoters were introduced first, followed by the introduction of these initiators, which is the wrong sequence of events. Initiators should be first given and then followed by promoters. That is why this group didn't form any tumors. Okay, if you have any questions regarding this, the steps involved in chemical carcinogenesis, otherwise we will move forward. Now, another important aspect is molecular targets of chemical carcinogens. Where do they attack and how is their attack so precise that they result in formation of cancer? Because we have already studied in the hallmarks that all the hallmarks are attained due to certain mutations. For example, mutation has to take place in the proto-oncogenes in order to make a self-sufficient to proliferation. If the proto-oncogene is not affected or not mutated, then oncogene will not form. As a result, there will be no self-sufficiency in growth signals. So there are specific genes which have to be attacked in order to form a neoplasm. So how is it possible that these chemical carcinogens, they have so precise targets? This is a question to be answered. Actually, what happens that when these carcinogenic agents attack DNAs and cause mutations in DNA, those mutations occur throughout the genome, provided that the dose of the carcinogenic agent is enough. So mutations are actually occurring throughout the genome. It's only by chance and by luck that those mutations hit at the correct spot. So there is no single or unique alteration associated with cancer initiation, nor is there any apparent predisposition for cancers for initiators to cause mutations in particular genes. Presumably, mutations occur throughout the genome and cells that by chance suffer damage to the usual suspects, oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes such as RAS and TP53 gain a potential selective advantage and are at risk for subsequent transformation. When these carcinogenic agents were attacking the whole genome anywhere that they like, these were hit by chance, RAS and TP53. One of them is proto-oncogene and the other is the tumor suppressor gene. When they are mutated, the cell gains a potential advantage and these cells are at risk for subsequent transformation. क्योंकि आप लोगों ने पढ़ा है कि carcinogenesis is a process of series of transformations or series of mutations. A single mutation does not lead to formation of cancer. Many genes have to be affected before the formation of a malignant neoplasm. But in some cases, there is some of the carcinogenic agents have such chemical structure that they interact preferentially with particular DNA sequences or bases and thus produce mutations that are clustered at hotspots. Hotspots यही है, RAS हो गई, TP53 हो गई, जो प्रोटॉन को जीन्स बाकी सारी और ट्यूमर सप्रेसर जीन्स जैसे RB जीन आप लोगों ने पढ़ी है. Yeah, these are all the hotspots. अब पहली बात जो हम लोगों ने बताई वो ये थी कि mutations are occurring throughout the genome, but the usual suspects, oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes, get damaged by chance. Okay, they suffer the damage by chance, and when they suffer the damage, subsequent transformation and subsequent mutations become easier. The cell becomes vulnerable to more toxic injuries. This is the case in most of the cancers. Okay, but in some cancers, the carcinogenic agents have certain preference for particular DNA sequences or bases, which will also explain the fact why some cancers are some people develop cancers and others don't. Okay, G. This is not to say that mutations induced by carcinogens occur in an entirely random fashion because of their chemical structures. Some carcinogens interact preferentially with particular DNA sequences or bases and thus produce mutations that are clustered at hotspots or that are enriched for particular base substitutions. One example of a chemical carcinogen associated with a mutational is aflatoxin B1. This is the example of the plant carcinogens, one of the examples of initiators which are indirect carcinogenic agents. The plant carcinogen. Aflatoxin B1 जो है, it is associated with hepatocellular carcinoma. It is a naturally occurring agent produced by some strains of a mold called Aspergillus. It is a type of fungus. Aspergillus grows on improperly stored grains and nuts, and there is a strong correlation between the dietary level of this food contaminant and the incidence of hepatocellular carcinoma in parts of Africa and East. These nuts are eaten more in Africa and Far East if they are contaminated with this mold Aspergillus. They contain aflatoxin B1. Aflatoxin B1 is an agent produced by Aspergillus and it is present in stored grains. So aflatoxin B1 associated hepatocellular carcinomas tend to have a particular mutation in TP53, a GC2TA transversion in codon 249 that produces an arginine substitution in the TP53 protein. In contrast, TP53 mutations are infrequent in liver tumors from areas where aflatoxin contamination of food does not occur, and few of these mutations involve codon 249. Now, this fact is explaining why some of the chemical agents are more strongly associated with the formation of cancer. कि क्यों कहते हैं कि तंबाकू नोशनी सेहत के लिए नुकसानदेह और ये कैंसर कॉज करती है? इसका आंसर नेक्स्ट वाले में है, क्योंकि lung cancers also have a strong association with smoking. with smoking have a tenfold higher mutational burden on average than lung cancers in non-smokers. And these excess mutations are strongly skewed towards particular base substitutions caused in cigarette smoke. So what we are focusing on. Okay. So one of the examples is aspergillus, and the other example is uh, smoking. The chemicals in smoking and aspergillus have a preference, or they have a high uh, affinity to bind to certain or to cause certain mutations which are not present in other groups, which were not exposed to these agents. Hepatocellular carcinoma has many positive uh, positive agents associated with hepatocellular carcinoma is also caused by hepatitis B virus. But hepatocellular carcinoma that is caused by aspergillus is associated with a specific mutation, TP53 transversion in codon 49 that produces an arginine serine substitution. ये पूरी लाइन आप लोगों ने याद करनी है कि कौन वाले hepatocellular carcinoma में aspergillus agent and aflatoxin B1 is the chemical which is causing. Smoking जो है उसके अंदर सिर्फ A1 genotype जो है that is more prone, the people who have that genotype CYP1 they are 7-fold higher risk of developing cancer compared with smokers without the permissive genotype. And also the chemicals which are present in the cigarette smoke, they are they cause more frequency of mutations in the lung cancer, uh, in the lung cells, which give rise to certain types of cancers. So these are certain environmental factors which are related to or associated with some malignancies. One is cancer, cigarette smoking, which causes carcinoma of the lung and carcinoma of the larynx. Excess sun exposure causes squamous cell carcinoma and basal cell carcinoma of skin and melanoma. Alkylating agents give rise to acute leukemia. Asbestos is the cause of carcinoma of the lung, pleura, and peritoneal mesothelioma, gastrointestinal tract cancers. Smoked foods rich in nitrosamines cause adenocarcinoma of stomach. Alcohol causes carcinoma of mouth and esophagus, hepatocellular carcinoma. Arsenic causes small cell and basal cell carcinoma of skin. Low fiber diet causes adenocarcinoma of colon. High fiber diet causes breast carcinoma. Aniline dyes, aromatic amines, beta-naphthylamine. These are all the cause of transitional cell carcinoma of bladder. Aflatoxin B1 is the causative agent in hepatocellular carcinoma. Benzene causes acute leukemia. Polyvinyl chloride causes hepatic hemangiosarcoma. Thorotrast causes hepatic hemangiosarcoma or angiosarcoma. Diethylstilbestrol, which is a form of estrogen, it causes clear cell adenocarcinoma of vagina. Nickel causes carcinoma of the lung, chromium causes carcinoma of the lung, and uranium also causes carcinoma of the lung. These are the high yield uh, agents or factors associated with the type of malignancy. ये एग्जाम के अंदर ज़्यादा इसके वाले पूछे जाते हैं, ये सारे मैंने आपको अलग से बताए हैं. So, if we summarize our topic of chemical carcinogenesis, it is a relatively easy topic. I hope you have understood. There are two sequence of events taking place in the process of chemical carcinogenesis. One is the initiation and the second is promotion. Initiation involves two types of carcinogenic agents. One are the direct acting carcinogenic agents, which include all the anti-cancer drugs, and the other group is indirect acting carcinogens, which include polycyclic and heterocyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, aromatic amines, amides, azotides, natural plant and microbial products. and some others, which include nitrosamines, amines, vinyl chloride, nickel, chromium, insecticides, fungicides, polychlorinated biphenyls. And natural plant and microbial products include aflatoxin B1, griseofulvin, cycasin, saffrole, betel nuts. Betel nuts जो है ये वो छालिया होता है जो खाते हैं लोग. And it very commonly causes carcinoma of oral cavity, and it's very common. Anybody around you having a habit of eating these betel nuts, please ask them to quit it. I have seen my own cousin dying of oral cancer because of these betel nuts. She used to eat fanus and rasili. She always had them piled up in her bag, and I always used to see her eating these. And then she died at the age of 45 years of oral cavity cancer. Next category of carcinogenesis is radiation carcinogenesis. It is that thing which we are exposed to on everyday basis because it includes sun rays also. Radiation energy in the form of UV rays of sunlight or ionizing electromagnetic and particulate radiation is carcinogenic. So radiation carcinogenesis is divided into two major categories. One is ultraviolet rays and the other is ionizing radiation. Ultraviolet rays include UV rays, and ionizing radiations include X-rays and gamma rays and that type of things. So what about ultraviolet rays or UV rays? Exposure to UV rays derived from the sun, particularly in fair-skinned individuals, is associated with an increased incidence of squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and melanoma of the skin. ठीक है, ये तीन है जो इसमें ज़्यादा होते हैं: squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and melanoma of the skin. The degree of risk depends on the type of UV rays, the intensity of exposure, and the quantity of the light-absorbing protective mantle of melanin in the skin. Persons of European origin who have fair skin that repeatedly becomes sunburned after stalwartly refuses to tan and who live in locales receiving a great deal of sunlight have among the highest incidence of skin cancers. For example, melanomas, squamous cell carcinomas, and basal cell carcinomas in the world. Non-melanoma skin cancers are associated with total cumulative exposure to UV radiations, whereas melanomas are associated with intense intermittent exposure, as occurs in sunbathing. The UV portion of the solar spectrum can be divided into three wavelength ranges: UVA, which ranges from 320 to 400 nanometers, UVB, which ranges from 280 to 320 nanometers, and UVC, which ranges from 200 to 280 nanometers. Among these three, UVB is the most dangerous because it causes cutaneous cancers. UVC, although is a potent mutagen, it is not considered significant because it is filtered out by the ozone layer surrounding the Earth. The carcinogenicity of UVB light is due to formation of pyrimidine dimers in DNA. So you all know that DNA is formed up of pyrimidines and purine bases which have to form bonds with each other. But what happens by the exposure of UVB rays, there is formation of dimers between neighboring thymine pairs in DNA. Two adjacencies जो हैं, they form bonds with each other. Instead of forming bonds with the opposing adenine न्यूक्लियोटाइड बेस पेयर्स। टी ने ए के साथ ज्वाइन होना होता है, मगर वो इसमें नहीं होता, वो अपने नेबरिंग टी के साथ ज्वाइन हो जाता है। तो एज अ रिजल्ट the result is a chemical reaction that leads to covalent cross-linking of pyrimidine bases, particularly adjacent thymidine residues in the same strand of DNA. This distorts the DNA helix and prevents proper pairing of the dimer with bases in the opposite DNA strand. Pyrimidine dimers are repaired by the nucleotide excision repair pathway. Nucleotide excision repair pathway मैंने आप लोगों को बताया था उसमें पहले भी। न्यूक्लियोटाइड एक्सिजन रिपेयर क्या करता है कि वो इस वाले, ये जहाँ पे ये एबनॉर्मल बॉन्डिंग हुई है डीएनए की, इसको यहाँ से रिमूव कर देते हैं और फिर यहाँ पे एक नई स्ट्रैंड, नई चेन बन जाती है अपनी जगह पे और फिर वापस सही हो जाता है डीएनए। ये इसको ठीक करने के लिए रिपेयर पाथवे है डीएनए का, जिस तरह से और भी कई रिपेयर पाथवेज होते हैं। It is postulated that with excessive sun exposure, the capacity of the nucleotide excision repair pathway is overwhelmed and error-prone, non-templated DNA repair mechanisms become operative that provide for the survival of the cell at the cost of the genome. इसमें क्या होगा कि the DNA will still be repaired, but the templates will not be repaired. This cross-linking will be finished or stopped, but the DNA base pairs will remain the same. So the DNA will not be repaired properly at the cost of the life of cell. Otherwise, if DNA will not be repaired, it will lead to the triggering of apoptotic pathway. But here, nucleotide excision repair pathway has been overwhelmed. It cannot work more to repair more DNA, and another pathway has become activated, which is known as non-templated DNA repair mechanism. Non-templated DNA repair mechanism, where the DNA templates are not repaired properly. As a result, the genome will be mutated and the cell will survive, which is actually non-lethal genetic damage. When these cells will divide, it will lead to formation of cancer. The importance of the nucleotide excision repair pathway of DNA repair is most graphically illustrated by the high frequency of cancers in individuals with the hereditary disorder xeroderma pigmentosum. What happens in xeroderma pigmentosum? The nucleotide excision repair pathway is non-functioning or abnormal. So the patients of xeroderma pigmentosum are prone to develop more cancers, and they do develop more cancers. They develop squamous cell carcinomas, basal cell carcinomas, or melanomas. The role of UV exposure in the etiology of melanoma has been somewhat controversial. However, recent sequencing of melanoma genomes has revealed a very large number of mutations that appear to stem from non-templated error-prone repair of pyrimidine dimers, reinforcing the belief that sun exposure has an important causative role in this potentially lethal cancer. Okay, this was about the ultraviolet rays, which are basically divided into three categories: UVA, UVB, UVC. UVB are the ones which cause cancers. UVA do not cause cancers, they only cause sunburns. That is why they always insist that when you buy a sunscreen or sunblock, you have to buy a sunblock of high SPF. A sunblock having a SPF more than 60 saves us from this UVB radiation. A sunblock having a lower SPF saves us only from UVA rays, which are for sunburning. They don't cause any cancers. वैसे तो we are brown people and we are not more prone to skin cancers. White people are more prone. Exposure of fair-skinned individuals particularly is associated with incidence of squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell carcinoma, and melanoma. The diagram is not given in Robbins, but it is a very good explanatory diagram. The skin exposed to UV rays, and here is one normal cell of skin. Initiation, which is causing DNA damage and mutagenesis. There is an initiated cell. Now promotion will cause clonal expansion, and further UV irradiation will give rise to pre-neoplastic cells, which will progress to form malignant neoplasm. And epigenin, curcumin, proanthracyanides, resveratrol, silymarin, green tea, these are all antioxidants which save us from formation of uh, DNA mutation. ऑक्सीडेटिव स्ट्रेस को ये बेसिकली कम करते हैं, तो डीएनए की लाइफ जो है वो इम्प्रूव हो जाती है, हेल्थ इम्प्रूव हो जाती है. वैसे तो दिस इज स्टिल कंट्रोवर्शियल. Recently a study has been published about the usefulness of green tea in preventing cancer and all other things, and it said that there is no role of green tea in causing any beneficial effect on health. I don't know if it was from some commercial agencies or it was a real research, but there is a research regarding green tea which says that it has no benefit. The second category of radiation carcinogenesis involves ionizing radiation, which are further divided into two categories. One is electromagnetic radiation, which involves X-rays and gamma rays. Other is particulate ionizing radiation, which involves alpha, beta, protons, and neutrons. Alpha particles, beta particles, protons, and neutrons. The evidence is so voluminous that a few examples suffice. अच्छा, अब इस टॉपिक के अंदर इन्होंने एक्चुअल जो कार्सिनोजेनेसिस के स्टेप्स हैं वो नहीं दिए हुए, क्योंकि इसमें भी सेम कार्सिनोजेनेसिस के स्टेप्स हैं, इनिशिएशन एंड प्रमोशन. इस पूरे टॉपिक के अंदर अब उन्होंने सिर्फ आगे एग्जांपल्स दी हैं टू प्रूव दैट आयोनाइजिंग रेडिएशंस कॉज कैंसर. Many individuals pioneering the use of X-rays developed skin cancers. Miners of radioactive elements in Central Europe and the Rocky Mountain regions of the United States have a tenfold increased incidence of lung cancers compared to the rest of the population. Most telling is the follow-up of survivors of the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Initially, there was a marked increase in the incidence of certain forms of leukemia after an average latent period of about 7 years. Subsequently, the incidence of many solid tumors with longer latent periods, for example, carcinomas of the breast, colon, thyroid, and lung, increased. Of great concern is in the current era of widespread use of computerized tomography or CT scans are studies that have shown that children who get 2 or 3 CT scans have a threefold higher risk of leukemia, and those that received 5 to 10 such scans have a threefold higher risk of brain tumors. The overall risk in children is very low, roughly 1 excess leukemia and 1 excess brain tumor over 10 years per 10,000 CT scans, but nevertheless emphasizes the need to minimize radiation exposure whenever possible. In humans, there is a hierarchy of vulnerability of different tissues to radiation-induced cancers. Most frequent are myeloid leukemias, tumors of granulocytes and their precursors. Cancers of the thyroid follows closely, but only in the young. In the intermediate category are cancers of the breast, lungs, and salivary glands. In contrast, skin, bone, and the gastrointestinal tract are relatively resistant to radiation-induced neoplasia. Even though the gastrointestinal epithelial cells are vulnerable to the acute cell-killing effects of radiation, and the skin is first in line for all external radiation. Nonetheless, the physician must not forget, particularly any cell can be transformed into a cancer cell by sufficient exposure to radiation energy. ओके ये जो इंसिडेंस वाली बात इसके बारे में हमारे प्रोफेसर ने हमें एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट बात बताई थी. ही टोल्ड अस दैट ये जो इंसिडेंस देते हैं कि 1 in 10,000 people can develop this cancer as a result of radiation exposure. अच्छा उन्होंने बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात ये बताई थी कि 1 in 10,000 जो है ये तो हमारे लिए है. ये रिसर्च किया कि सर्टेन कार्सिनोजेनिक एजेंट का इतना रेशो है कैंसर डेवलप करने का. लेकिन अगर आप उस एक बंदे के लिए देखें जिस एक बंदे में 10,000 में से कैंसर हुआ है उसके लिए तो वो 100% हो गया ना रेशो. उसको तो वो सोच सकते कि ये फलानी बीमारी जो है इसमें फॉर एग्जांपल अभी आजकल कोरोना वायरस के अंदर वो कह रहे हैं 2% या 3% मोर्टेलिटी रेट है. अब ये 2% या 3% तो हम सब पॉपुलेशन के लिए है. खासकर जिसके घर में इससे ये डेथ हो जाती है उसके लिए तो परसेंट रेट हो. तो this is the thing which keep ourselves as much as possible क्योंकि radiation की एक्सपोजर की chances develop होते हैं कि मैंने skin cancer and my radiologist, lung cancer in uranium minors, thyroid cancer in patients who receive head and neck radiation therapy, of atomic survivors के बारे में एक शॉर्ट टर्म उन्होंने कैंसर डेवलप किए थे. There was developed cancer in the long term. Short term वाले जो थे they were all who developed AML and CML क्योंकि ये blood cancer and they developed them within the period of 7 years. जो दूसरी कैटेगरी है उन्हें लॉन्ग टर्म के बाद जब डेवलप किए तो those were the solid tumors. Cancer of breast and uterus वाले जो cancers थे they developed after a period of long delayed period. Colon, thyroid, lung and breast ये solid tumors जो थे इन्होंने बाद में. And osteosarcoma in radium watch dial workers. Radium watch dial workers. Osteosarcoma is a very lethal cancer. Sarcoma जिस भी कैंसर के साथ आ जाए एक्चुअली कैंसर नहीं कहना चाहिए. Sarcoma is a neoplasm of malignant neoplasm of soft tissues. तो sarcomas जो हैं they are all very lethal. एक डेथ हो जाती है. Okay, now you have any question? Do all mutations are non? What are the mutations caused by the environmental factors which cause mutations in TP53 and RAS? Yes, mutations that cause malignancies are all lethal. या कभी lethal है क्योंकि lethal का मतलब क्या है? का मतलब कि उनकी जान खत्म हो जाए. तो if the mutation is lethal, it cannot lead to malignancy. It will die. It will make the cell die. Lethal हो जाएगा ना उसके लिए वो सेल ही die हो जाएगा तो malignancy कैसे बनाएगा? And same all the mutations will lead to malignancy be caused by a mutation which is lethal. क्योंकि lethal का मतलब है कि the cell will die. The cell will die. Malignancy will not form. TP में हो या RAS में हो या किसी में भी हो, they are all non-lethal. It is said to increase